This video has been kindly sponsored by Babbel. Something I don't often talk about on this channel is my love for words, especially old and beautiful ones. I actually have a master's degree in poetry. Okay, well technically it's in creative writing, but I only ever wrote poetry and my dissertation was all poetry, so to me it's really a poetry degree. I write a lot of poetry myself even now, and one of my dreams is to release a book of poetry one day, but we'll see. I absolutely adore Romantic era literature specifically, and I've studied it quite extensively. In fact, the Romantics are part of the reason I started wearing historical fashion every day. I got very deeply involved with reading Romantic era poetry, and then of course I became interested in the associated fashion, artwork, and history, the whole thing. Obviously there are a bunch of other factors that played into my historical fashion decision, but this is one of them. I think what drew me to them so much was that I see myself as a capital R romantic. I deeply revere nature. I believe in following feelings and one's ideals over imposed societal conventions and rules. I've come across so many beautiful words that were used in historical literature, especially in Romantic era literature, and I deeply wish that these words would make a comeback. Some of them are wonderfully descriptive and just elicit a certain feeling that I find we don't always get in more contemporary vernacular. Incredibly helpful to my study of literature, I also studied French for about 5 years, but of course because I didn't practice it much, I lost most of it. So I've gone on a bit of a journey to learn French again because, as you'll soon see, it's an incredibly useful language to know when it comes to both historical literature and also historical fashion. I mean, come on, robe, chemise, corset. The sponsor of today's video, Babbel, is one major way that I've been relearning and practicing my French. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world, and it is scientifically proven to help you start speaking a new language in 3 weeks. The lessons are designed by real language teachers, and they teach you real-world conversations. They also prepare you to have practical conversations about travel, business, relationships, and more. Babbel has a few different subscriptions to choose from, including a lifetime subscription, and they offer a 20-day money-back guarantee. On top of the app reteaching me useful French phrases like l'addition s'il vous plaît or je m'appelle Merci, I've also learned more complex things like how to express my wishes, passé composé, and more. Devinez. Summer is the season of travel, and Babbel is every explorer's must-have travel accessory for a reason, because its simple bite-sized lessons give you the confidence to speak a new language wherever you go. If you'd like to get 60% off your subscription with Babbel, be sure to check out the link in the description box below. Also, let me know in the comments which language you would really like to learn, as I'm just super curious. The first beautiful historical word I'd like to mention is cerulean. I think this word is one of the most beautiful English ones, in fact, and it means a deep sky blue color. According to Google, this word has actually made a bit of a contemporary comeback, which is great news, but I first learned of it in Homer's hymn to Minerva, I believe by Percy Shelley. He writes, "Beneath the might of the cerulean-eyed, earth dreadfully resounded far and wide." This word is also used in literary French, according to one of my friends who is French, shout out to Alex, and it has the same definition, but it's pronounced cerulean. Well, more or less, because of course I'm still a French learner, so bear with my butchering of the French language. Mutability is our next word, which means the tendency to change. And it also happens to be the name of one of my all-time favorite poems, Mutability by Percy Shelley, in which he writes, "Man's yesterday may ne'er be like his morrow. Naught may endure but mutability." I highly recommend the poem if you're interested in this niche. Ooh, this is a super fun word with an interesting fun fact attached to it that I learned when I studied the Romantics in university many years ago. The word is Aeolian, and it means wind-blown. But there's also this musical instrument that was quite sought after by the Romantics, and I think it's because it in essence reflects a lot of their values. It's called an Aeolian harp, and basically you would place it in a window or outside, and the notes are played by the wind. So this has the reverence for nature, the emotionality, intuition, spontaneity, the connection to spirit and mysticism, all of which was very important to people who consider themselves capital R romantics. Samuel Coleridge even wrote a poem called the Aeolian Harp. I really recommend looking up videos of the harp because the sound is so haunting and unique at the same time. This word isn't so much beautiful as it is kind of funny to me. The word awful was sometimes used in Romantic era literature to mean awe-inspiring. And the modern definition of awful couldn't be further from the meaning of awe-inspiring. In fact, they are essentially antonyms. I just think it would be really funny and perhaps super confusing if people started using awful to mean awe-inspiring again. The next beautiful word is vernal, and it means of relating to or occurring in the spring, or fresh or new like the spring. So basically spring-like. I first read this word in Percy Shelley's poem To a Sky-Lark, in which he says, "Sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain-awakened flowers, all that ever was." It's such a beautiful word, and right away it makes me think of a very fresh green color, almost like that of the first leaf when it buds from a tree in the spring. Which funnily enough ties into another very beautiful historical word, verdurous, or a slight alternative, verdant, which both quite literally mean a freshly green color. The next word is ennui, which is actually a French word, but it is also sometimes used by the British. It was used more often historically, and then popularity dipped for a little while, and again now it's starting to make a bit of a comeback. It means boredom, essentially, or a feeling of weariness and dissatisfaction. The word gloam is next, and historically it meant twilight. You can see it utilized, for example, in the John Keats poem Les Belles Dames sans Merci, where he says, "I saw their starved lips in the gloam." And then there's the word forlorn, and it basically means sad, abandoned, or lonely, and we sometimes see this spelling in contemporary use. I'm sure there's a good chance you've actually heard of the word before. But in Romantic era literature, it is written as just lorn, such as in Letitia Elizabeth Landon's poem, The Fairy of the Fountains, where she writes, "For her lorn heart's wasted soil." Here's an extremely French-derived word, couchant or couchant. I don't actually know if it's pronounced couchant or couchant, but it comes from the French verb se coucher, which means to go to bed or to lie down, and couchant has a similar meaning in English, lying down. I also think that the English word couch is related, as of course we can lie down on them too. I adore this word. It is eminence, and historically it means elevated ground. Nowadays, people more or less use it for describing being respected or important, but I also really like the practicality and simplicity of its historical definition. It's kind of funny to think such a beautiful sounding word could mean something as normal and mundane as elevated ground in a very literal sense, not even necessarily metaphorically. And I thought I'd throw in a couple of historical beautiful French words just for a bit of fun, courtesy of my friend Alex again. There's a word called annuité, which is a French verb that means to darken, say a building or town with the approach of the night. I feel like we don't have a word in English for this, but we really should because that moment elicits a very special feeling. And finally, there's the French word adamantin, which means an adjective that is said of something that is as strong or as glistening as a diamond. I really hope you enjoyed me nerding out about historical, mostly Romantic era literature for this video. Let me know in the comments if there are any other beautiful historical words that you can think of. I think the exchange of meaningful words and language in general is a brilliant way for people to connect with one another. Hopefully now as well, if you want to write some extravagant backstory for a historical character you're developing, or just for fun, you'll be well equipped with some new words. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks for another video.